Hey there, welcome to Randomness of Rudy. My name is Tracey. I'm a consulting astrologer and a certified life coach. And welcome to my series, What's Your Sign, Cancer? This is a playlist that takes a look at what it means to have all of the planets in our solar system, Sun through Jupiter, in the sign of Cancer. Primarily inspired for parents with children who have Cancer placements, this information also applies to adults. And so in this particular video, we're going to talk about what it means to have the planet Mercury in the sign of Cancer. Mercury in astrology describes how we communicate, how we think, how we disseminate knowledge, how we process information, and how we engage our surroundings. Cancer, meanwhile, is a water sign, and water signs are the feelers of the zodiac. These are signs that operate in the realm of emotions. And generally speaking, Mercury in a water sign can be somewhat of a murky placement. And that's because Mercury is a planet that is connected to logic and reason and analyzing and pragmatism and facts and figures. Whereas water signs are feelers. They're intuitive. They're sensing by nature. And so when you put Mercury in the sign of Cancer, in a water sign really, but especially in the sign of Cancer, it describes a native that is constantly having to go back and forth in their own minds how to communicate, right? Oftentimes, Mercury and Cancer natives can be so consumed by what they feel and what they sense that it can be really difficult for them to actually find the words. This placement also describes an individual that can sense things behind words, what's not being said, in other words, what's the feeling in the conversation. Mercury and Cancer natives are extremely emotionally intelligent. And so they're able to identify what's really happening when someone is expressing themselves, when someone is communicating, which is why oftentimes these natives are performing what can feel like this mental acrobatics, trying to identify, okay, do I communicate that 2 + 2 is 4, or do I get to the root of the issue of why we're having this conversation in the first place, right? And so it's a murky placement to have, and this is going to make communication really hard for your little one if they have Mercury in the sign of Cancer. And so some helpful tips to keep in mind with this placement is, again, Mercury and Cancer children feel and sense everything that's happening when it comes to engagement with others, daily exchanges, and activities in their immediate environment. Those feelings, those sensations that they can intuit is going to inform how they communicate. And if you consider that most adults don't do well with expressing their feelings and emotions, you can imagine how overwhelmed and challenging it's going to be for the child with Mercury in the sign of Cancer. And so with that said, teaching your child how to pause and reflect and think about what it is they need to communicate before entering into a conversation can be really helpful. Or learning how to write out everything that they're feeling after an exchange so that they can respond in an appropriate way. You may want to teach your child how to trust themselves when it comes to formulating conclusions, because oftentimes Mercury and Cancer natives can be easily swayed. This is an impressionable placement. And so when you can teach your child to learn how to trust their intuition, that might make them more confident with regards to how they communicate, how they express themselves. You also want to make sure that you're teaching your child discernment, because sometimes 2 + 2 really is just 4, and that's the extent of the conversation. That's it. So these are things, some tips that might support you in raising a child with Mercury in the sign of Cancer. But I think most importantly is to just keep in mind that this child senses and feels everything. It's actually why Mercury and Cancer natives have such great memories, because if there's a feeling behind it, if there's sentimentality behind it, if it's in a charged atmosphere, they'll sense it and they will never forget it. And so again, highly impressionable, which is what lends to this emotional intelligence, this ability for Mercury and Cancer natives to become these wordsmiths in ways that are inspiring and motivational, but also in ways that make people feel heard, that make people feel like they can be open in communication. And at the same time, emotions can often get the best of us, making it difficult for us to comprehend things or express things in a coherent way. So It's a mixed bag with Mercury and Cancer, but nevertheless, it's a pretty powerful placement to have. Now, we're only talking about Mercury, right? When we're born, all of the planets are in different zodiac signs. And so if you want a full detailed report on your child's personality based on their full astrological makeup, visit my website at babyastrologybooks.com and purchase their first astrology book. And if you're an adult that wants more information, visit my website at traceylrogers.com and book yourself a chart analysis reading. Until next time, take care.